Now we discuss Chapter 11, Setting Goals and Managing the Sales Force's Performance. The question always is goals or quotas. Historically, the discussion about the topics that we're going to cover here in this chapter have been some of the least favorite for our students. A typical comment might be something like, if you don't make your quota, you're a goner. More top-flight sales forces no longer use the term quotas. In its place, they use the term goals. Goals reflect a more positive perspective and outlook, and our presentation in this content reflects that sentiment. After completing this chapter, you'll be able to describe how sales managers use goals to guide and control the efforts of their sales force. You'll be able to summarize the elements of an effective goal. You'll be able to distinguish when different outcomes behavioral sales goals should be used. You should be able to identify different resources available to capture information used for making effective decisions on goals. And you should be able to apply goal-setting theory in order to improve managerial and motivational practices. Now, when we think about what's involved in setting goals, there are 5 distinct areas here: monitoring salespeople, monitoring the market conditions, competitive reactions, follow-up, and instituting corrective actions. The definition is the performance standards by which salespeople are measured. Sales goals are useful for several reasons. Benchmarking performance, synchronize the direction and efforts of the sales force, and achievement of goals can be motivating and is usually tied to compensation. If a sales goal is a performance standard by which salespeople are measured, then we must understand how we can use these goals to guide and manage the performance of the sales force. The first area that we need to look at is motivating the sales force. You need to set achievable goals that can help motivate the sales force. Goals serve as benchmarks to help gauge how reps are doing. The next step is focus the selling efforts. Goals help direct efforts towards certain activities, for example, growing markets. As more baby boomers retire and don't want to burden their children with medical expenses, many are purchasing long-term care insurance. Seeing this growing market segment, a company like Northwestern Mutual Insurance might set a goal for its agents to contact their current life insurance policy holders, spend a certain amount of time with them to explain the product, and sell a specific number of new policies to their customers. The next is assess the return on investment. You need to ensure the effort put into selling product earns a good return. Of course, we all agree that that's an important issue. When sales are short of expectations, they may need to revise the marketing mix variables. The next thing you can do is compare results. Comparing results helps determine what factors cause sales to be lower or higher in one area or another. For example, competition, customer demographics, and the like. For example, perhaps the number of competitors and the strength of each in the territory is different. Or perhaps the characteristics of the buyers in a certain area, the geographical distance between them, or the skills and efforts of the salespeople working in the areas differ. Of course, as we have indicated, the performance of different salespeople can be compared too. Performance variations are to be expected to some extent based upon the experience and skills of different sales representatives as well as differences in their territories. Now, there are different types of goals or quotas. Your goals are based on measures of performance that occur over time. There are a variety of measurements and time periods that can be incorporated into goals. Regardless of what's being measured, however, the performance measures, or metrics in this case, should reflect what is most important in the organization's marketing strategy. Goals are often described as being either input or output based. Input based goals or activities relate to the observable selling efforts a salesperson must make. For example, the number of sales calls or the presentations he or she must make and the number of sales proposals the person must write. The number of new clients contacted by the representative is also an input variable. Input goals ensures that representatives are performing the firm's core selling activities. Unfortunately, efforts alone don't always produce results. That's why output goals are important. Output or outcome-based goals are the selling results a representative is expected to achieve. Examples include the number of orders a representative must achieve and the revenue, sales volumes, and profits the person must generate. One of the newer type of measurements is called the pipeline analysis. One of the things you could see from the next exhibit is that there are different measurements the firm can use in order to make this measure. But if you look at the pipeline analysis, it tells how well the representative maintains a stream of customers at different stages of the sales process. Another way to measure or to set goals is to have expense quotas. Expense quotas are designed to keep the costs associated with the representative's sales in line with what the firm thinks that the rep should spend in order to be successful. It's usually calculated as a percent of sales. Now, the costs include putting on demonstrations, entertaining customers, customer sampling or trials of products, lodging, and other travel costs are among the many expenses that sales representatives will incur. One of the things that we do know is that we have to choose the right metrics and time period to track. Now, too many measures makes it more difficult to focus on the critical few metrics. Which metrics are very important, which ones are critical to the performance of your sales representatives can lead to an increase in the bottom line. You need to define that, include that in terms of measurement. Most sales firms establish their sales goals on a yearly basis. Sometimes it's important to break down the yearly figures into quarters and sometimes monthly units. That way you can get an idea if there are problems or issues that need to be addressed in the short term. Now here's a question that's always asked. Should salespeople be involved in setting their only overall goal? If you look at a survey that we mentioned from 2009, greater than 60% of the companies actually solicit input from sales forces about setting goals for themselves. There are some important things that can be learned about getting the representative actually participating in setting the goal. It helps improve the rep's morale because managers better understand the obstacles. But there's a disadvantage. Reps can have incentives to lowball their goals. Remember, we're looking for input, not for them to set their goals, but for them to give us some input about what would be appropriate and what would not be appropriate, actually to get buy-in. We also need to get an idea of what are the reasons for the representative not achieving their overall goals. There are a number of different factors that are in place, and companies have studied this a great deal. You can have flawed sales projections based upon limited marketing research. You can have changes in the marketing mix variables resulting in inferior product or services. You can have an increase in the cost of supplies passed on to buyers via high product prices. You can have promotional campaigns that really just don't work and don't get the projected results. You can have delays or other problems with distribution of the products. New competitors and competing products entering the marketplace can always impede the achievement of the goal. Environmental factors can affect customer demand and cause customers to postpone or cancel their purchases. And change in laws and regulations preventing or restricting use of products and services or making them more expensive. And change in the way firms do business, for example, as a result of new technology. We did mention earlier that you needed to be flexible. The question always is, do goals ever get changed or altered? Most companies will adjust goals yearly. Also, it's common to adjust the goals during the year. Shouldn't adjust it too many times, though, through the year. Reps get confused and they feel cheated. However, if you're getting representative feedback on the overall goals and you're getting buy-in, then the probability that you're going to have to go through and adjust the goal becomes relatively small. When you start thinking about the process of setting goals, goals can truly be a double-edged sword. When done correctly, they can motivate a sales force to succeed. However, when done incorrectly, they can demotivate the sales force. So we always like to look for a place to start with respect to setting goals. If you recall, from Chapter 1, there was a discussion about the importance of setting goals based upon the SMART characteristics for developing a well-written goal. That acronym is a good starting point for discussing the procedures used to set the goals. Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based. Let's ask ourselves the question, when do difficult goals become too difficult? Setting goals so high that the average representative thinks it's unobtainable can result in unethical behavior, and that's one of the things we need to guard against. There are examples of this throughout the textbook. Won't go through there in detail. But one of the things you can have happen is if you set the goal too high and you have unethical behavior, then you can damage your reputation, and some of this can cause businesses to close. We've had many examples in the pharma industry where there have been some issues at place about representatives and the goals and trying to achieve their goal. Goal setting works because it impacts people's performance in 4 ways. The first area is goals direct people's attention and effort towards goal-related behaviors. Energize representatives. Goals have an energizing function. Higher goals produce more effort than goals that are set at lower levels. Affect persistence. Harder goals will prolong the expenditure of effort. Tight deadlines lead to a more rigid work pace than loose goals. Finally, increase problem solving. When faced with completing difficult goals, people will seek new ways to accomplish them. So we finish here with the practical guidelines for setting goals. Based on goal setting principles, here are some guidelines that we can look at. Number 1, set goals that are easy for sales representatives to understand. Number 2, important tasks not included as a goal may get ignored. Number 3, having too many goals can create stress. Keep the number of goals to a reasonable number. Number 4, get reps to commit to their goals by explaining how they have been set. Number 5, clearly indicate how the sales performance will be measured and rewarded. Number 6, provide feedback as frequently as possible. Encourage reps to use alternative approaches to sell if initial approaches don't work. Number 7, make sure people know you have confidence in their ability to achieve their goals. And number 8, failing to achieve a goal should not be viewed as a failure. It should be considered progress on the road to success.